Okay, welcome to another edition of Skull Sessions with Dan Hank. And today my guest is Candace Nola. That's correct?
Yep.
Okay, why don't you introduce yourself to the crowd, to the public?
Okay. Well, I am the creator of Uncomfortably Dark, the author of some novels out there like Hank Flynn and Breach and Bishop and the anthologies like Trapped and The Dozen, which won the 2022 Splatterpunk Anthology of the Year award last year.
That's awesome.
Editor, publisher, reviewer, all the things.
Is the anthology all work by you or is it a bunch of different people?
It is a collection of 13 of today's top extreme horror folks like Carver Pike and Ruth Ann Jag and Aaron Regard and Dan Volpe, Christine Morgan's in it, Jeff Strand is in it, um, Roland Bursey Jr., Mike Enenbach. There's 13 in all.
Okay, and what's that available on? Is it on Amazon?
Yes, it is on Amazon. It's on my website. It is on the Godless platform also. Sorry, I
Okay.
stutter.
Are you an Audible?
That one is yes. The newest one, Trap, is still in production right now. So, yep.
Bridget introduced me to her friend Cassandra. She works for ACX, which I guess is a division of Audible, and they did an audio version of my new anthology, and she did a great job.
Nice.
And she does a royalty share, so it's like you don't pay anything up front.
Hmm.
Although the Audible tends to sell very well, so you might
Yeah.
consider paying up front.
Yeah.
But is that what you just finished, like the anthology?
I'm working on the newest one for this fall now. So, Trapped came out last fall. The new one comes out this November. The Dozen came out in November of 2021. And then
Okay.
it won the award last year, and then the new one will be out in November of this year.
Okay, awesome. And you have a back catalog of stuff too, right?
Yeah, I do.
So how many novels do you have out that are specifically you, not like compilations and anthologies?
Um, Novels, I now have eight, I think. I
and
think
they're
eight.
and they're all full of stories, or do you have collections of short stories?
I have a collection coming out next spring. I have my novels right now, I believe there are eight, or there will be eight by the end of next month. My newest one was just released this morning, and I was just told it is almost sold out. It was that one. And then I have a new one coming out the end of next month.
Okay, awesome. And what do you have coming out the end of next month?
It is a novel called Transformation, which is a cryptid creature feature story. And I
Okay,
actually have been writing that live on my Patreon account all year.
okay,
So if you were on there, you were able to read it each week, and then those folks will get a copy of it free when it is complete next month, and then it will be available for everyone else at the end of September.
okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, scaling back, I mean, this is kind of like the you got to ask everyone question. How did you get into this? What got you started?
What got me started? I was raised on horror. Twilight Zone, Hitchcock, Poe, Stephen King, all of that. It was just something I really liked, and I kind of like to be a little bit scared sometimes, which was weird because when I was a kid, I had a lot of nightmares, really bad nightmares. But then when I was about 8 or so, I kind of got really hooked on like horror movies and the old classics like Frankenstein, Dracula. And I started listening to Edgar Allan Poe stories and Hitchcock stories. And my mom and dad were into a lot of like sci-fi and horror and mysteries and all that. And at the time, we watched whatever they watched. So it was always, sci-fi or the Twilight Zone or horror movies. So, I mean, it's just what I always had. So,
You watch The Outer Limits? That's my
mhm.
personal favorite, The Outer
Yeah,
Limits.
yeah.
So, where did you live growing up? Did you live in more like suburban area or urban or rural
In the
area?
country,
Okay.
country, about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I still live now, but I actually live within Pittsburgh itself, which is a lot more like sub suburban where I am now. So still relatively close to home.
Well, it's cool. They had SuperCon near you just recently, but
Yes.
next year it's in fucking San Diego. So
Yes.
I don't know if I'm going to travel there, but I made the drive to Pittsburgh to get SuperCon. But
Yeah, I was there.
it's about like a 9 hour drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you.
Hmm.
I was like, you got to do my podcast.
And that's
You're
when we
like,
set it up.
all right.
Fine.
If you insist, all right, basically this out of the way. But so how long have you been focused on like the whole like everything you're doing, the genre, like editing and publishing and
5 years
writing?
now.
Okay.
5 years. I published my first novel in late 2019, and I don't really count that first year or so as much more than like trying to learn and improve and learn and improve. So really everything took off, I would say, in like late November of 2020. And then I started the website. And then a year after that, I started the editing and then got into sort of like the publishing piece with the anthology for the Baker's Dozen. And I just kept learning and learning and learning. And now I'm in, I guess, technically my fifth year. I'm in or have written or have published 17 different novels and anthologies or things like that. I think this year alone, I've written stories for 9 different anthologies for this year. Um, yeah, it's been a lot. And then the website was it used to be my own personal website for just me. But over the last couple of years, I saw that we had a need for more websites that were aimed at the indie horror world itself. We needed folks to be more aware of it and that we're here and this is what we do. This is how you can find us. So as of June, I actually transitioned the website into a full indie horror community website. So we do reviews, we do interviews, we do exclusives, we do cover reviews, we do cover reveals, author promotional spots on the homepage, some publisher promotional spots on the homepage. Um, Everything you want to know about the indie horror community right now, you can pretty much find on that website. Authors can be found there. There's a list there. There's a list of small indie presses and publishers and reviewers and podcast lists. If you're a reader, you can find the people you want there. If you're an author and you need a a podcast interview, you need a cover designer, you need a review team, you can find all that there. And we do 18 to 20 reviews a week, sometimes more. And it's
So,
all indie
what's
horror
this
books.
site so that people can go look at it?
Uncomfortablydark.com.
So, uncomfortablydark.com is like
Mm-hmm.
all one word.com.
All one word,
Okay.
uncomfortably dark. And it's because I'm uncomfortable all the time. I don't like public speaking. I don't like I get nervous all the time. I stutter. So I'm uncomfortable and I write
Right.
dark stuff. So
Right.
that's where the name came from. Uncomfortably dark. Yep.
Well, this is probably entirely off topic, but like, I went to the gym today. I go to the gym, to the local gym a lot, and there's always this guy there on weekends. And, he's like a small, skinny guy, always at the computer. And I'm always super nice to him because I'm like, if anybody goes to a shooting spree, it's going to be him. And I want him to remember I was a nice guy. But
You're
like,
always a nice guy.
but I just like that made me think of like he seems uncomfortable. So that made me think of like, yeah, probably he gets like probably deals with a lot of shit. He's like
Yeah.
Jim and all these like bros and and like, so I don't blame him for being mad at the world, but if he's mad at the world, please don't put the gun on me.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's go back to so what were you doing before you started writing full time for a living or working on this like indie horror publication thing for a living?
I have a day job.
Okay.
I still do. I work for a large health insurance organization. So I've been doing that. I've actually worked for this organization for about 22 years now. So I still work there. I have kids. So I'm just, just I work, I take care of them, and now I do all the writing and everything else on top of that. So
So does organization you work for, do they know what you do for, like kind of I'd say for a living, but it's like a side project and a living, right?
yes, they're aware that I write.
Are they very supportive?
Um, I don't think any of them have read anything that I've written. So they know I write, they know what I write. I don't think anyone that I work with is very interested in what I write. They just kind of like smile and they're like, "Oh, good for you."
But
Which
they're
is fine because I write some mainstream stuff and I write some really extreme stuff and you know, they may not like
so what would you say is more the genre that you work in? Is it more like the kind of speculative? Like that's what my publisher calls my stuff is speculative fiction. I'm like,
hmm
what the fuck is that? He's like, oh well, it's a little bit of this, so it's like a hodgepodge. So it's like a little bit of horror, a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of like dystopian,
Yeah,
kind of end of the world fantasy. What do you focus on?
all of it. Right now, I kind of got my hands in all of it. I do everything from supernatural, paranormal, serial killers, slashers, creature features, possession, demon slayers. Like I've done it all. I've done extreme, very extreme, splatterpunk, comedic, absurd. Um, I don't want to be known as any one anything. I do it all. I write horror books. That's it. So if that's what you like, that's what you're gonna get. Um, if you don't like extreme, well, just pay attention to what the back cover says or what it's marketed as, because I let everyone know this one's extreme, this one is this one is this, but I tend to write just whatever the story needs. So I don't say I write any one subgenre, just whatever I want to write and whatever the story calls for or the anthology calls for, and I write it all.
Well, do you have a preference for like one thing over another?
Not that I found yet. I'm kind of really just enjoying the fact that, hey, I'm gonna try this and it works, and then I'm gonna try this and it works.
Do you kind of get a thrill of like trying something new and seeing if you can pull it off?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, but you haven't found one style that clicks with you more than any other?
No, not yet. Um, as long as it's something that is twisted, I think I like it. As long as it's something I can kind of twist and turn and make it into something just really unexpected and disturbing. I like it. I don't think I could write like a romance or a straight Western or a fantasy or something. I read all of those and I like them all, but I don't think I would really enjoy just writing that. Now, I did write a horror Western, which was fantastic because I like the Westerns and I like that whole time frame and how it was all written. But when I added in the supernatural and the horror element and I took the Wild West and I just made it this whole other thing, it was fantastic. But I don't think I would want to write just like a Western. Like I like my stuff to be a little bit more extreme and a little bit more blood and noise and yelling and mayhem.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a unexplored area or territory, like the whole like horror western thing. Because
Mm,
I always really enjoy it when I see it. Because like that's there's so much lore and there's so much history. If you
yeah,
mix a little bit of the supernatural in with it,
yeah.
I think that's a winner. And I can even watch like if it's kind of well done old western but with like a slightly darker tint, that still
Hmm.
holds my interest. Just like
Yeah,
the all the Florida atmosphere and the costumes and like the like architecture and everything.
yeah, same.
So do you prefer writing longer stuff or do you prefer writing shorter stuff?
Longer. I enjoy the whole creative process of a longer piece of work, but I have started to enjoy writing the short ones because it's a lot, it's more of a challenge to pull off an entire story in like 3,000 words or 5,000 words. It's like, okay, what can I cut and where can I start this to pull the person in? And then what all needs to take place in that very short amount of space that I have to use. So I've actually started to enjoy those, but I prefer a longer one because I can really make a world and put everything in there that I want and kind of make things up as I go along and I don't have to worry about a work count. But I don't know.
Yeah, I really enjoy that whole world building thing. And I think too
Yeah,
many people these days don't do it. Like they just
yeah,
immediately jump to the like punch you in the face, splatter, and it's
yeah,
like you feel the impact a lot more if it builds up.
yeah,
People like Richard Matheson and and like go back to the old people like Poe and stuff like that. They're experts in building the characters up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that.
So, do you have a comfort zone like 300 words or 500 words? Or you're just saying if it's longer, do you are able to express yourself without limitations on the word count?
Um, you mean if I'm gonna do a longer one?
Yeah, I'm asking if like you have a comfort zone, like or you're like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot for like 200 words, I'm gonna shoot for 300, or that's where it kind of feels right to me. Like when I write a book, I'm like around 300 is my comfort zone. So whether it's like 294 or 315 or whatever, I feel like I'll feel satisfied. I'll feel like it's a medium enough chunk if I get 300 words out. I
Oh,
mean
like
300 pages out.
yeah. For a longer piece of work, I like around 210 to 250 or so.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had some that are a little bit less. I've had some that end about 160 to 180 or so. So I guess those would be more of a novella length. But my longer ones tend to be about 210 to 225-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like people have a different preference on how they approach the writing. Um, what works best for you? Like some people prefer first person, some people prefer the third person, some people prefer to put everything down and then heavily edit it to like bring it together, and some people like to like write a whole like a strict storyline and then try and follow that closely. And some people are, and I just learned about this, they're called pantsers. So they go by the seat of their pants.
That
So
would be me. That would be me. Yeah, I don't plan. I don't outline. I don't plan. My entire creative process is in my head. I don't write notes down. I don't have an outline written out. I don't have character sheets and worksheets and all of that. It's all in my head. I know the entire storyline from start to end before I sit down to type any any of it. That being said, when I actually start to type it out, it's purely whatever I have already thought through, and I just kind of wing it. And it's just, this is the storyline. I know A, B, and C has to take place. This is the main character. This is what I'm going to put them through. And I just kind of fill in the blanks with the rest of it as I go. Right. I just wing it. Sometimes I will have a plot twist in there at the end that I didn't even see coming. Like I wrote a story, I had a short story just come out last week. And when I got to the very end, like I added this really great plot twist to the end. And I didn't even have that in mind. I was like, I'm gonna add this. And it was done. I was like, okay. It fit, it worked, it ended it on like a really nice note. And hey, I was done. So
do you go back and edit like previous text to like make it, like jive a little bit more closely with like what's going on later on?
no, because it all works.
Okay. I know some
It,
people are
it, it
very
all
much
works.
against it. It's almost like a written rule, like you don't go back in. And some people are like, I do that all the time.
Yeah. Um, I don't have the need very much to go back and rewrite anything, like any large chunks. Like I'll go in and I'll make sure everything is nice and clean and it flows right and all of that. But usually, even if I add a plot twist at the end, it still works with the entire flow of the whole story. So I don't need to go over it to like change something in the front just to make it match up with the back because it all flows and whatever plot twist I add at the end, it'll make sense for what the overall story was.
Well,
So,
I remember I did a couple of writing seminars and like one to do with Alan Moore. And Alan Moore is like very meticulous, like tons of notes. Like he wrote Watchmen, and
mhm,
if you saw the graphic novel Watchmen, if you saw the movie Watchmen,
yeah,
when he wrote the graphic novel, he built Manhattan so that he could place a character here and see where they were, looking, and like I said, very very meticulous. And I interview both authors and artists, and I interview some of the artists that work with him, and they're like they butt heads a lot because he's like he has a vision of how every like he will even draw like little storyboards of how every
mhm,
single scene should look, you
yeah,
know, and plan it all out ahead of time. But like some people, they can't work like that. They need to like they need to do stuff on the fly.
yeah.
And you're saying that you feel more inspired doing that, like as you go along, you love to make changes and whatever you feel is appropriate, you throw in there.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Okay,
just wing it.
So has it always been your approach? Like when you started out, were you like a little bit more like you felt like you had to like follow a stricture or something? No?
No, no, I
Okay, and
just wing
well, I mean the real call is whether it's a good story. It's not necessarily how you approach it, it's whether
it.
you
Right,
pulled it off, you know.
right.
So I think people get way too critical when they say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. No, the real proof is, the product when it comes out.
Mm.
So when you first started out, how young were you when you started writing?
Oh, I've only been writing, well, okay. So I've been writing professionally, I guess, for about 5 years. But I've been writing my whole life. This is pretty much the only thing I've ever wanted to do in life. And when I was 8 or 9, I started writing little like stories and whatnot. And then when I was about 11, I started writing verses and poetry and more like stories. I did short stories all through school. And then I was about 20 or so, and I went to work, found a job, all that stuff. And then I kind of didn't write a lot as much as I used to, but I always stayed with writing the v verses, and that was more of like a personal outlet thing. And I kind of gave up on trying to write because I just didn't know how to even start. There was not the internet wasn't like it is now. Amazon didn't exist like it exists now. We didn't have all these resources in our houses like we have now. And I just really I didn't know where to start or even how. And back then it was you had to write out a manuscript and type it all out and you had to send it out in the mail and send out these letters and query people and get those big fat books of the writer's market and all this stuff. And I have 9 of those still in my house. But it was just too much and without anyone to help me that even knew a little bit of the ins and outs. It was just too much. I just didn't know. So I kind of quit on the whole thing. I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna work and, take care of my kids and have a day job.
Right.
And then in 2019, a friend of mine who is an aspiring writer, I used to help her brainstorm a lot with her own stuff. And I met her back in 2014 or so. And she would often say, you need to get back into this. You're so good. You need to write more. You need to write more. And I was like, ship sailed. I don't even know what to do. Like, I don't have the attention span or the patience anymore. Like, I gave her all these excuses, and she was just like, yeah, okay. And then in January of 2019, she calls me with this, hey, I found a writing contest that I want to try for, but it's speculative fiction and it's like a monster thing. She's like, I was wondering if you wanted to co-write it or like help me with it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, sure, I'll help you, but I don't want to write it with you. Like, you can have the credit, you can do the story, but yeah, I'll help you. And I asked her, I'm like, well, what do you want me to start with? And she's like, I need a monster. And she's like, just give me like an opening scene with like a monster in it, give me something to work with. And I was like, okay. So I sat down that night and I had like 2,500 words written in like a couple hours, I think. And I had this big opening scene with this monster chasing these campers through the woods. And it got bad. And I sent it off to her. I'm like, here you go, it's your monster. And she read it and she's like, oh, this is fantastic. She's like, well, just keep going and then I'll jump in and I'll add to it. And so I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And
So you
I
got kind of
built this
tricked
whole
into
world.
writing. You got
It,
tricked into writing, basically.
yes. In 6 weeks, I had the novel done, Breach. And I was like, here you go. And she's like, oh, no, ma'am, there's no contest. She was like, I just wanted to show you you could still write. And she said, you had what it takes. And she's like, what are you going to do with it now? She's like, you have a full novel and it is fantastic. What are you going to do with it? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, publish it. Figure it out, go online, publish it, and see what happens. She's like, you need to be doing this. And so I spent the next couple of months working on how do I publish on Amazon? How do I do this and that and the other? And I published Breach. And here we are.
Awesome. Well, so were you a little bit mad at her? Like, in the long run, she did you a favor.
Not really. I just kind of laughed at her, like, what?
That's
She
a
was
lot of
like,
faith, though.
yeah. She's like, but you have a book now. And she was like, you have a book. You wrote this story in 6 weeks. She's like, most people can't write that many words and have a story that good in a year, let alone 6 weeks.
Right.
She's like, at least try, do something with it. She's like, if nothing happens, fine. She said, but at least you will have tried.
Right.
And I like a challenge. And I'm kind of stubborn, so I was like, fine, fine. You want me to publish? Fine. Here
Was
we are.
that
5 years
kickstarted
later.
your career as a writer, basically?
Yeah. Yeah. So here we are, and her and I are still friends and we still speak, and she's extremely excited for me. She called me a couple weeks ago because she just read part 2 of the Bear series, and she was so excited. And she's like, I am just so proud of you. She's like, it's been 5 years and look at everything that you've done. And I was like, it's all your fault.
So is she your biggest fan?
Probably close. I think her and my mom might be neck and neck, but I have quite a few self-proclaimed super fans right
Right.
now.
Well, as long as she didn't break your feet and like turn into Kathy Bates.
No, but I do send her everything that I write as soon as it's done. I'm like, hey, yeah, it's a new one.
Okay, well, awesome. Is there anything else that you want to cover?
No, I don't know. I write and I work on a website and
All right, well,
I
give
do what I
everybody
do.
a shout out to how they can see you because I want them to definitely see what you're working on.
Uncomfortablydark.com is the website for me and everyone else. I am launching a personal website again here in about another week or so, which will be strictly just me. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'm under either my name or under Uncomfortably Dark.
Okay.
Find me
And
everywhere.
you have a book coming out now or an anthology or it just came out?
My newest just came out today called Desperate Wishes. It
Okay.
is a limited edition hardcover from Thunderstorm, and I was just notified a few minutes ago that they're
It's
sold
sold
out to
out.
almost
Yeah.
5 copies.
Yeah, congrats.
There were 5 left, like as of 2 hours ago. So I don't
So they're
I
probably
think
gone by
that's
now.
done. It will be coming back out eventually. I think sometime over the fall. I'm gonna release it wide, but this was just like a special one. I had a new short story come out called The Vet on the Godless platform, but it is now available on the Amazon website as well. It is a short, extreme horror story about a vet that begins taking revenge out on people who abuse their pets.
I'm definitely down for that. I'm definitely down. Like
And then I have
whenever they kill a
Transformation,
dog in a movie, I'm like, that guy's gonna die.
right?
Like if you saw John
Why'd you
Wick,
hurt the dog?
yeah. Like if you saw John Wick, once they shoot dog, I'm like, they're gonna die. That's it. They're gonna die.
Yeah, so there's that. And then I have the story called Transformation coming out for my Patreon folks at the end of next month, and then it will be released wide in September. And the new anthology for the website comes out in November.
So what you have like a exclusive Patreon page where you like offer stuff first to people.
Hmm.
So what's your page?
Uncomfortably Dark.
But that's
It's
the
all the
Patreon
same
page.
name.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate all the stuff you're doing for like the indie horror market. I feel like, it kind of seems like people weren't doing much about indie and then
Yeah.
they started to, and then like I think people thought there'd be a lot of money, and so they dumped money into it, they oversaturated it, it kind of died for a little while and then it came back.
Yeah.
And now I think it's in a much better place.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of great things right now in the indie world, so it's
And
great.
I think people kind of learned that like the best stuff isn't from the corporate media, whether
Right.
it's music, whether it's art, whether it's books, whatever. But thank you very much for doing this, Candace.
You're welcome. Thank you.